The modern economy runs on your absolute obedience, your steadfast reliability, your undying belief that if you live to work, the American dream is yours now and forever. But here's the truth you refuse to hear or see. There is no corporate ladder. You're following a yellow brick road of conditioned compliance. You're too afraid to take risks on the leadership treadmill where raises come slowly, if at all. Promotions are political and rewards are out of reach. And still you grind, because that's what corporations train and retrain you to do. Because deep down, you accept being a wage slave, and it means everything to your survival. If World War III were to start today and you were drafted tomorrow, your corporate or private employment is done until the war's end. Now you're a wage slave fighting for your life and country. Guess who reaches the border first? The illegal immigrants or draft dodgers. Loyalty is not rewarded, it's exploited. Leaders, managers, and supervisors are and have always been submissive to the modern labor systems. You're not their future leader. You're their tried and true sacrifice, a blood offering. They devour your obedience, potential, predictability, and life force. And as long as you keep playing the wage slave role they've written for you, you will be eaten. You've seen your peers consumed and spit out. Don't think so? You show up early to both of your jobs. You work 20+ hours of overtime a week. You follow the rules as all their die-hard worker bees do. You sacrifice your time, your energy, your health, for the job, for the team, for the promise of someday. You're honest, loyal, you take pride in doing things the right way. And yet you're stuck, doomed to watch some dumbass steal your bonus, your new office, and your raise. Now they're living your best life with that damn smirk on their face. Don't ask yourself, what did I do wrong? Because you've been brainwashed since graduation to believe that working hard for corporate America equals success. That formula is broken, a fate worse than death. A psychological trap designed not to uplift you but to keep you a wage slave. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Life is competitive, political, an enjoyable heaven on earth. Life isn't fair. The system doesn't reward virtue, it rewards value. Not the value you create, but the value you control. That's why the master mechanic pulling a 12-hour shift gets paid less than a TikToker selling a get-rich-quick scheme. That's why a blue-collar worker who breaks their back every day will retire with barely enough to live comfortably. It's why a hedge fund manager manipulates the silver and gold market and walks away with millions of dollars. It's not your fault you believe the myth. The myth was designed for people like you, to keep you obedient, to keep you working, to keep you from asking dangerous questions. Questions like, who benefits from my loyalty? Who profits from my exhaustion? Why does the system praise hard work and reward something else entirely beyond my scope of reality? You shouldn't stop working, nor should you glorify the shiftless or selfishness. What deserves to be challenged is the idea that obedient labor is inherently moral, that to suffer without reward is somehow sacred, that virtue means submission. Slave morality is a belief system born not from strength, but from weakness, not from power, but from fear. And if you feel stuck despite doing everything right, you're not crazy. You're waking up. You're beginning to see that the world isn't malfunctioning. It's functioning exactly as it was designed to be. The people who rise aren't always the most skilled or the most selfless. They're the ones who understand power, how to navigate it, how to claim it, and how to detach their worth from whether or not the system approves of their claim over it. So ask yourself, what if working harder isn't the answer? What if your belief in moral labor isn't your salvation, but your pen? You must confront this lie, or you'll keep grinding your life away while someone else rewrites your rules. Let's take a closer look at the contradiction hiding in plain sight. If hard work leads to success, why do the hardest working people struggle to survive? Think about it. The construction workers who rise before the sun and labor until their backs ache. The retail workers who pull 12-hour shifts, skipping meals and missing holidays. The janitors, warehouse workers, and over-the-road truckers who keep cities alive. People who make the world go around. And yet, these are the same people who can barely live paycheck to paycheck. Citizens who worry about rent and who can't afford to ever get sick. Meanwhile, someone is filming get-rich-quick tips in a rented Ferrari, making more in one day than a manager earns in a month. This isn't a rare glitch in the system. This is the system. While hard labor builds the world, labor does not control it. The people who earn the most, CEOs, hedge fund managers, politicians, thought leaders, are not the ones sweating in the heat or grinding in the cold. They are not pushing physical limits or sacrificing their bodies. They operate in a different domain entirely, the domain of leverage, perception, and control. They don't just work. They position, they influence, they own. Let's be brutally honest. We've built a world where value isn't rewarded based on effort, but based on power. A world where controlling capital, networks, and narratives pays far more than producing anything tangible. And that world is not a mistake. It's by design. It's tempting to think this is unfair, that some kind of error has occurred. But again, this isn't a malfunction. It's how the game was set up centuries ago. Because physical labor, no matter how honest, can be replaced, automated, outsourced, or devalued. But control over resources, over people, over ideas, is scalable. The master mechanic can only fix one car at a time. The investor can move billions with a single click. The system favors scale. Here's where the lie of moral labor becomes especially cruel. Those who serve quietly, who sacrifice without complaint, are the moral backbone of society. But morality doesn't pay the bills. Praise doesn't build wealth. And sacrifice doesn't automatically translate into influence. The working class is programmed to keep their heads down, told to be grateful you're alive. Those at the top are trained in strategy, in law, in manipulation, in capital acquisition. They are taught not to serve, but to manage and take no prisoners. Not to endure, but to dominate. They learn the rules, then how to rewrite them. So ask yourself, if moral labor is so righteous, so essential, why doesn't it come with power? Why are the most indispensable workers also the most disposable? Why does society preach the value of hard work, then funnel the rewards elsewhere? Because the moral system itself was crafted by the powerful. Not to liberate the masses, but to pacify them. It teaches obedience, not sovereignty. Self-sacrifice, not self-assertion. It glorifies submission, then punishes those who dare to question the hierarchy. That's why the lie persists, because it benefits those in command. Because it keeps people striving, hoping, and working for a reward that never comes. Because the promise of someday is the most effective chain ever forged. So the question becomes clear. If hard work doesn't lead to power, then what does? And more importantly, are you willing to unlearn the lie you were raised to believe? To understand how this lie took hold, and why the world continues to reward manipulation over merit, we must dig deeper. We have to examine the foundation of the values we've been taught to live by. Morality as a universal good has become a weapon, a creation shaped and deployed by those in power to serve their ends. What we call morality isn't the truth. It's a strategy. There are two competing moral systems, master morality and slave morality. Master morality is born from strength. It celebrates ambition, boldness, creativity, and the will to shape the world. It does not wait for permission. It does not ask to be recognized. It declares its own value. The one who holds master morality defines good by what enhances their power, their freedom, their capacity to build and to command. Strength is not a threat, it is a virtue. And virtue is whatever affirms life, power, and possibility. Slave morality is different. It is born from weakness. It emerges from those who cannot compete on the battlefield of power. So they redefine the rules. They claim that humility is superior to strength, that obedience is nobler than dominance, that suffering is a sign of moral purity. In this system, the qualities that once defined weakness are reframed as virtues, because for the powerless, it's the only path to dignity in a world they can't control. Here's the trap. Once this moral code spreads, it becomes sacred, untouchable. It's no longer seen as a survival strategy. It is taught as absolute truth. That honorable people serve. That virtue lies in doing your duty, expecting nothing in return. We romanticize the worker who never complains, who always says yes, who puts the needs of others before their own needs, without realizing that this narrative serves those who benefit from your silence. You are not rewarded for your morality. You're pacified by it. You're praised for being dependable, promoted for being manageable, rewarded just enough to keep you hopeful, just enough to keep you dependent, while the true currency of ownership, control, and power remains far out of reach. So why does this belief still hold so much power? Why do billions of people cling to the promise that suffering equals virtue? That their sacrifice will be seen and obedience will be rewarded? Because the story is beautiful. Because it gives meaning to pain. Because it allows people to endure unfairness without confronting it. Slave morality survives not because it is true, but because it is comforting. And comfort is a sedative. But awakening means confronting the terrifying freedom that comes when you stop waiting for justice and start creating on your own terms. So, the real question begins to take shape. Not just why we were taught to suffer quietly, but who benefits when we do. If this system is so rigged, so clearly designed to reward control over contribution, why do so many good people still believe in it? The answer isn't just economic, it's psychological. It starts early, long before your first paycheck. From childhood, you were taught that the world is fair, that good things happen to good people, that justice will prevail. Cartoons, fairy tales, school lessons, they all repeat the same refrain: if you do what's right, you'll be rewarded. Be kind, be honest, be diligent. And in the end, life will make sense. But here's the problem. That belief has a name. Psychologists call it the just world fallacy, the idea that the world is inherently fair. That effort equals the outcome that what you give will always come back. It's a beautiful idea that gives people hope and helps make sense of suffering. But it's not true. And clinging to it, especially in a system designed to reward power over principle, isn't just naive. It's dangerous, because while you're working late, double-checking payroll, fixing problems you didn't create, someone else is learning how to play in earnest. While you're saying yes, being polite, taking the extra shift, someone else is building alliances, studying leverage, and learning exactly how to make the system work for them. You believe you're being moral. They're being strategic. That's why the technician who keeps the servers running gets laid off, while the politician with deep connections collects kickbacks. That's why the supervisor loses his weekend bonus, but the hotel's PR budget doubles. The system doesn't just fail to reward hard work, it weaponized your belief in fairness to keep you locked in place. You were taught to trust the elusive ladder. They were taught how to skip its rungs. And here's where it gets cruel. The system doesn't just fail to reward hard work, it weaponizes your belief in fairness to keep you locked in place. The longer you wait for your virtue to be noticed, the easier you are to control. Because people who believe in justice don't rebel. They don't demand more. They keep waiting for recognition, for fairness, for someday. But someday never comes. This isn't just about money. It's about mindset. About realizing that if you keep following the wrong roadmap, you'll never reach the right destination. The rules you were taught were designed to produce mindless worker bees, not powerful people. And the ones who taught them to you? They understood the game. They just needed someone else to keep playing it in their stead. So if the world isn't fair, if virtue doesn't lead to victory, then what does? How do you survive without becoming ruthless? How do you move forward without losing your soul? The answer isn't to abandon morality. It's to stop worshiping it, to stop treating sacrifice like a strategy, to understand that good intentions are not a plan. That, in a world built on power, understanding power is part of being good. Because once you open your eyes to the truth, you know fairness is not a guarantee, but a story you were sold to keep you docile. Write your own story, not a story of blind sacrifice, but of conscious strength. Not obedience, but ownership. Not waiting for the world to change, but learning how to change your place in the world. So what do you do once you've seen the lie? Once you realize that waiting to be rewarded for your obedience is a dead end, you don't throw away your morals. You redefine what strength looks like. This is the mistake many make when they first wake up. They think the only alternative to being exploited is becoming heartless. Stop confusing submissiveness with virtue. The solution isn't to destroy morality, it's to overcome the morality of weakness. To become someone who doesn't just follow rules, but writes new ones. Someone who doesn't need permission to live with purpose. Not a tyrant, not a villain, but a fully realized individual. A creator of values. Someone who walks away from systems that no longer serve them and builds something better in their place. Define your true meaning. Don't wait to be promoted. Create an impact on your own terms. Define your true meaning. Understand the system so you won't be enslaved by it. Power isn't evil, it's necessary. Not the power over others, but the power over yourself. Know when to play the game and when to change the board. Your direction, your destiny. One small step at a time. You've seen these people in real life. The entrepreneur who walked away from a stable job to build something bold. The investor who turned rejection into innovation. The builder who stopped asking for permission and started taking risks. Think of the man fired from the company he helped create. He was dismissed by others as reckless. until he built an empire on vision, conviction, and the refusal to be ruled by his fear. What separates these people isn't just talent or luck, it's a mindset, not the system validating them. They stopped asking, when will they see my worth? And started asking, why am I giving them my power? That shift, from waiting to creating, from submitting to owning, that's the path. That's what stepping out of the pen of moral slave labor is. But here's the hard truth. Escaping that pen means letting go of something deeply comforting. Your attachment to being seen as a good person. It means being willing to disappoint people who benefit from your silence as you stand alone while you build a new foundation. And that takes more than confidence. It takes courage. Because true strength isn't about domination. It's about authorship aligning with your deepest values. Not the values handed to you by a system designed to keep you docile. It's about becoming sovereign. So ask yourself, what would happen if you stopped waiting to be rewarded? You'd start rewarding yourself with the life of your dreams. And stop asking for a seat at the table and build a table in a world you create. You don't have to become ruthless, but you do have to become responsible for your power. Because once you realize the system is against you, the only path forward is to stop being their wage slave. Now build your success. What does action look like after your awakening? After you've seen through the illusion of moral labor and stopped waiting for fairness? After you've chosen not to abandon morality, but to reclaim your power? Be the author beyond your visions and energize your reality with actions that yield physical results you can be proud of. It starts with understanding this. Kindness is not a weakness, but strategic kindness, that's your true strength. Too often, people confuse being good with being passive. They think it makes them virtuous, but morality without consciousness is just obedience in disguise. The goal is not to become cold or manipulative, it's to become conscious, to learn how to move through the world with both a moral compass and a survival strategy. Strategic kindness means knowing when to help and when to walk away. It means reading people, not just trusting them. It means understanding context, meaning you don't say yes to everyone just to be liked. Knowing when to speak, be silent, and when to strike. You say yes when it aligns with your goals, your truth, and your strength. Not every job deserves your loyalty, nor does every leader deserves your commitment. Become the person who knows when to walk away. Leaving is not failure when the situation is no longer serving your best interests. You choose which opportunities deserve your time and energy. Power is not something you take from others, but that which you claim for yourself in all earnestness. Power to build systems where you're not just earning, you're owning. And your energy doesn't fuel someone else's machine. It fuels a mission that reflects your core values for starting your own business or creating your second or third income stream. Learning how influence works, not to deceive, but to defend your visions. It might mean learning negotiation, setting boundaries to build your best life, saying, I won't do this anymore, and meaning it. These are not betrayals of your morals, they are expressions of your maturity. Because the truth is, if you don't learn how to play the power game, you will always be a pawn in it. The key is to use power as a tool, not a trophy, and you don't have to lose your soul in the process. Let your ethics guide your direction and strategy when making decisions. Apps for social employment credit scores aren't evil, but their use will keep you a wage slave. You're more than a great employee. You're an owner. It's the will to become more than a servant cog in the machine. It's the will to become the author of your true self-worth. And you can't do that if you treat morality as a pen. You have to treat it as a compass pointing to your true north. So no, don't throw away your principles and become a cynical player chasing status for its own sake. But do learn how to win the game and how to create leverage. Recognize when you're being used versus being seen, because the future doesn't belong to the obedient. It belongs to the clear, the conscious, the ones who merge principle with power, empath with edge. Don't wait for the world to change. They're the ones who change the terms of their existence. You've worked hard enough, now it's time to do something about it. Wake up, not because hard work is worthless, but because hard work without power, without strategy, without ownership will keep you a wage slave. High-valued men and women don't labor in the system. They study and overstand the system. When the rules no longer serve them, they create new rules. That's the difference between serving and leading. Become the architect of your future. Bury the myth of sacrifice being enough. Know that you are the one who doesn't wait to be the chosen one. Act smarter. Know that success is outside of the pen. Achieve all your dreams through wage-slave liberation. There's no better time than the present. The future is here. So act now. Stop thinking and wishing and start doing what you must to thrive in this society. Create your wildest dreams and ideas on your own terms.